He's clout chasing.
Jesse, I don't know your stuff from Adam.
And it really doesn't matter what Jesse Singal's intentions are.
I got news for you. You don't know what the word straightforwardly means, and I'm not sure you know what the word defamatory means. We have time for one more call? We'll try this one. Calling from 617, another Boston
Hey,
area
man, it's
code.
Jesse Singal.
Oh, it's Jesse Singal. Hello, Jesse.
How's it going, man?
Good. We can't hear you very well. Can you speak into your phone?
Yeah. Are you on the headphones?
Is that any better?
Not great, but we can try and can we put them up a little bit? All right, Jesse. So you wanted to call him for a while. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, thanks to Emma. She's going to come on my podcast, Blocked and Reported. I appreciate that. It takes some guts to do that, given our disagreements, but I'm basically just like calling in because, I committed to doing so. I'm a little bit...
you don't feel... you should not feel obligated whatsoever. I'm perfectly willing to... I didn't consider it a commitment. I wasn't anticipating it. So don't feel in any way obligated whatsoever.
I think it's okay. I do feel obligated. I said I would do it. I want to honor that. But I feel like Twitter causes a lot of division and drama, and I've contributed to it. I just think there's probably
I would agree with that.
I think there's probably a fair amount we agree on some of the stuff you guys discuss, including just how bad it is to try to ban youth gender medicine. That was something I wrote about in May of 2020, before it was a national story.
Okay, so here's what we're getting. Jesse calling in with the assurance that he is not a transphobe. He's the not transphobic transphobe. He's the least transphobic transphobe out there. And this is part of his IDW game. When I talk about IDW, I guess the defining characteristic is that the IDW, their first order of business is to convince you that they're not actually conservative. They're a free thinker. They're a heterodox thinker. They're actually more liberal than you. They're a classical liberal. It's the first thing that they'll do. And, Jesse Singal has made his career attacking trans people, but he would say that he's trying to help trans people. Part of his brand is I'm not actually transphobic, but this all came about when a caller called in to the Majority Report, and the caller mixed up their transphobes and attributed something that Barry Weiss had said to Jesse Singal. And he was just, fuming about this and, got into it with Matt Lech, got into it with Emma. And as a result, they played this game where it was like, I challenge Emma to come and be on my podcast next week. His podcast is Blocked and Reported, right? That's the name of his podcast with Katie Herzog. Emma was scheduled to come on that. And Jesse said that he would call in on Tuesday. So this was Tuesday. This was yesterday. Here's Jesse calling in, and he's starting off trying to find common ground. He's starting off trying to say, Twitter just blows everything up, and I've been guilty of that too. Sam is like, yeah, I do think you've contributed to that, right? So kind of like agrees with Jesse's self-effacing statement. So right off, we're going hard.
I also think there's probably some areas where there's a little bit of disagreement, but they tend to be edge cases, just stuff where there's probably going to have to be some, debate and compromise, but I think at the end of the day, I don't know. I've been writing about science for a decade, and
what do you mean by youth gender medicine?
But here's the thing.
Clarify that, please,
Jesse. I just want to make something clear.
And he says he's been writing about science for nearly a decade. I feel like all I've ever seen him write about is trans people in a sense of questioning, is it maybe too easy to get gender affirming care, right? That's as far as I know, that's his beat.
Don't care where we agree on. That is, I can't tell you how irrelevant it is to me what we agree on, whether it's in the context of trans stuff, whether it's in the context of any other politics. Wholly irrelevant. I don't care what kind of person you are. I don't care what your belief system is. None of that is relevant. The reason why I think you are toxic and at best extremely unhelpful in this area is that you distort the importance of this issue And
look, Jesse, I know you're out there, okay? You may or may not see the stream, but there's a better chance that you're going to see the stream than somebody else of your social media size seeing the stream, right? There's a lot of people your size or bigger that I could call out without any thought that maybe they're going to see this, right? Because I know that you're really sensitive, especially about being called transphobic, and I know that you react, like, you know, just like I react hard, you react hard to anything that has to do with your name, right? So if you're seeing this, make sure to watch through to the very end, because I got a special message for you, or, you know, any of your fans who might be watching. But I'm gonna get through this debate first. So just what I'm saying is don't cut out early, okay? Keep that hate watch going on strong. Yeah.
Fervent at pointing out this minutia that I consider minutia in the face of what is actually happening on the ground. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. That's not you, but it's an analogy, and it's an extreme one. But that's
just because we have limited time, could we just keep this to stuff I've written that you have?
No,
that you disagree
because
with, so
I don't. Because no, it's not even there's a specific no. Because it's not even that there's a specific thing that I take issue with, because that in some ways is exactly what the like indicative of the same problem. And I will do this. It's like, I know that you feel that you are just writing stuff that you think is accurate, very technically accurate.
Sam's got a strategy here, and this filibuster that he goes on is kind of like part of that strategy. I mean, there's an argument to be made that Jesse's audience is beyond reaching. So in light of that, I'm not like upset with it, but yeah, in general, it's something that I'm trying to do better at as well.
Really, until
being concise.
You promoted it. That in the word,
you don't think he's good at debates? At least not. It's not why you watch MR. Some people say that he is not as good as he was in his prime. He's had debates against Tim Pool that were just like hilarious. You know, he's taken apart libertarians, but yeah, some people say that he's rusty. I don't know.
Saying that when Matt said your lies were
Jesse's definitely trying to sidetrack him here.
By Republican Attorney General
and kind of suck him into, like, you know, we're not so different, you and me, Mr. Seder. Like he's kind of doing the James Bond supervillain.
For whatever reason, when we did this email exchange and you put out a little clip of it, you said conservatives. I was confused by that, because maybe I thought you were talking about something different. But my issue with what you do, okay, is best summed up in this analogy. And again, this is an analogy that's extreme, but it makes the case, is that back in 2004, there was a writer who wanted to argue, and you remember what was happening in 2004, 2005 in Iraq. Maybe it was before your time, I'm not sure. Who wanted to argue that there is nuance in the context of the torture debate. And by, you know, sort of showing that within the context of the torture debate, there were nuanced instances where the idea of saying that torture is bad is inaccurate, because there were nuanced instances where that was okay. And I think the headline was in defense of torture. And it was published on the Huffington Post at a time where
that's completely grotesque.
Yes, I'm sure. I use this example because I knew you would think it was grotesque. But why is it grotesque? Because this writer claimed that, like, look, I don't want to talk. I'm not trying to talk over you, but can you just give me something to latch onto? A problem you have with my work, not with the work of someone else. I'm explaining it to you. You don't want to engage in it. I will explain it to you.
He's using a point from a situation during the Iraq War, somebody that was like trying to find nuance in the torture debate, right? Where to compare it to Jesse Singal trying to find what he would call nuance in debate, in the trans debate, which, like when you're taking a marginalized group and calling them an area of discourse or a debate, we got problems already, right? But that's what Jesse Singal is doing.
The reason why it's
so Sam's finding something that he is going to see as being grotesque, that Jesse Singal is going to disagree with, and saying, Jesse, you're doing this, but to trans people.
To engage in it.
Okay. The reason why it's grotesque to me in that instance is because it's one thing to sort of like create a thought experiment where you could argue there are instances where torture is a legitimate choice. But it is another to do it.
Torture is not a legit, but torture.
I'm not saying that you are. I'm not saying that you are, Jesse. In fact,
we have
no, Jesse. I am using torture as an example so that you will understand my problem with your writing. I know that you think torture is abhorrent. That's why I'm using this as an example. There's no doubt in my mind that you agree with me totally on this perspective of torture. But let me finish so I can explain to you
my actual work.
I'm going to
my work.
Okay.
We're getting there, Jesse.
Okay, you'll get to it, I guess.
I will. I promise. This is be much quicker. I'll be done by now. In promoting that, in that instance, in a moment when torture is on the front pages of the news, regardless of whether there was merit to the philosophical argument about the value of torture, which I would agree, and I'm convinced that you would think is abhorrent, period. What that article does is it gives cover for people who were promoting torture in places outside of Huffington Post. The writer is basically positing that they have no...
So do you see the parallel here, right? You got a moment in which not only was the United States torturing people, was the United States waterboarding people, but the majority of the people, I think, right? Somebody who was around at this time, correct me if I'm wrong, but the post 9/11 reality was that there was nothing too horrible that a terrorist could deserve. And the United States coming into there could not correctly disambiguate somebody that was an actual, enabler of Al-Qaeda, somebody that had something to do with, Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, from people who were just like, some other dude hates you and he says, oh yeah, that guy right there, he's a huge Al-Qaeda fan. He loves Al-Qaeda. He's, right? So the United States got used to in people's beefs. And some of the people, in fact, not insignificant number of the people in Guantanamo Bay were innocent. And they were just taken in. There were no trials. There was no proceedings. It was just like, okay, we think this guy might have something to do with this. Bring him into Guantanamo. And that's where the torture was taking place. So what the parallel here is, just so nobody misses this, right? The parallel here is between the moral panic against trans people, the untrue allegations that supporting trans rights is equivalent to supporting grooming. So in other words, there's a moral panic going on here, just like there was, a moral panic and a hatred and an irrationality that was enabling what the United States was doing to people in Guantanamo Bay, right? And, the same way that this moral panic is enabling what Ron DeSantis, what states like Tennessee and Texas and North Dakota and all these states that are passing anti-trans legislation are doing to trans people. So that's the parallel, just so we're clear.
And you are promoting...
Oh, that's right. Chad Alpha just found another connection. DeSantis was their lawyer. I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right.
Promoting ideas in this manner in public, then you must...
Oh, the article in HuffPo, Natalie Marie says it was called In Defense of Torture.
Take responsibility, not just for the specific content as the letters, but its impact and how it's heard and how it's used in a political struggle that is going on. And I suggest that when you say the Republicans, AGs, who cited my material in the Atlantic, did so and twisted it in a way that it meant something different than it did,
So this is what Jesse was talking about with Matt Lech on Twitter, right? That Jesse had written an article, and this article got cited by Republican attorneys general in the pursuance of their anti-trans legislation. And Jesse says that this was a misattribution, that the claims that they were making, that they were using his article to support, were not actually things that he believed in, were not actually things that he said in the article, and that there was stuff in that article that would have maybe pushed back against that. But we're going to find out where was that stuff in the article, because it's an important question. When you're doing this stuff, you're not just putting out this article into a vacuum. You're putting it out into a atmosphere that is in full moral panic against trans people. So you have a responsibility for not just the content of your article, the content of what you put out, but in how that is likely to be used, who that is going to offer support to, what side that's going to be, used by.
That at the very least, you would realize that you are being used as a means to attack trans people and to attack.
But that's why 4 days. But that's why 4 days after they put that brief out, I did a Substack post saying lying about my work.
I'm glad that you did a Substack post. In fact, that same torture guy has a whole page on his, at that time, I think it was Medium.
I keep on messing up with the ad breaks.
As to why this is being misinterpreted. But do you know how many people saw the HuffPost thing versus saw that Medium thing? This is what we call in sales a funnel. I don't know why I say.
And you could say the same thing about like how many people, if you lead with something in journalism, right? If you're when you write a piece, especially if it's a long piece, you're supposed to put the most pertinent facts, the thing that you want to get across up front, right? Same thing happens with an article, in that the whatever is up at front in the front is going to get a lot more attention. It's going to get noticed. It's going to get read. It's going to have a lot more effect on the environment than something that's kind of buried in the article at 3,000 words into it.
Because I'm not in sales, but I read enough about it.
You're saying that a lot of people saw this fairly obscure brief over a technical aspect of Affordable Care Act enforcement. That's your argument, that was like a viral Huffington Post article?
Are you suggesting in any way, Jesse, that your work hasn't been cited?
Oh, yeah, it was Sam Harris.
Over and over again.
The In Defense of Torture. Yeah, it was a think piece by Sam Harris, not defending torture writ large, but, making a nuanced point, I guess Sam Harris would say about it, right? So real strong parallels to what Jesse is doing here.
By people saying, like, even the liberal Jesse Singal says that there's something problem here.
I mean, so the problem is that, with all due respect, I explained to you in the email like exactly what they did. My article said
you didn't even say when I said Republican AGs. I specifically asked you. Now you didn't publish this part of the email. You only published like the first line of it for whatever reason. But I asked you when I wanted to clarify this and catching up on it, what was defamatory? Because I think your words were straightforwardly defamatory about Matt Lech saying that your lies were cited by Republican AGs. And then you wrote back something about a tweet exchange you had with Matt about conservatives. For whatever reason, you wouldn't acknowledge Republican AG thing was.
No, but we're referring to the same legal document. And I pointed
I didn't know that because you didn't say anything about that legal. I can read the email right now if you want to clarify that.
Sam, could I get
it seemed really manipulative of you to pretend that you had explained this to me and saying, when whatever the tweet storm that you were trying to get going, when in fact I said Republican AG and you said conservatives. Some conservatives.
Sam, I think you're a little bit trying to talk over me because I'm making a very basic point here.
Okay, go ahead.
Respond or not.
You have the floor.
Okay. I emailed you. I pointed out that this.
So you can see Sam's strategy here, right? Jesse Singal wants to provoke a fight, right? Is kind of overreacting to what Matt said and what the caller said on the, because this all started not with something that Emma said, not with something that Sam said, not with something that Matt said, but with something that a caller said, right? And that Jesse was like, you got to correct the record. But really, what is it that he wants you to correct the record, or is it that he wants a ride on your platform. And it really strongly seems like that's what he was doing. He's clout chasing, right? This is the, when people say clout chasing, this is, generally what they mean, provoking a conflict in order to get onto a platform that you wouldn't otherwise get onto. And so you can see what Sam's strategy is here. There is a filibuster at work, right? There is, you could even say like a gish gallop at work, but it is in response to what Sam perceives as a play being made to chase his clout by somebody who, although they will tell you that they're a trans ally, that they're not a bigot, that they're not anti-trans, they're on the left, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And again, we don't know what's in, Jesse's heart. So, I'll remain agnostic about that. Right. But he doesn't want Jesse to be able to use his platform to spew misinformation, and whether that misinformation is like misplaced nuance in a context where it's destined to be used by actual transphobes, even if we grant that Jesse somehow isn't a transphobe, even if we assume the best about him, even if we take him in the best faith possible and make the assumption that he really is just trying to be nuanced here, and he doesn't have like a bone to pick with trans people writ large, but rather like a more of a minutia sort of point to pick apart. Regardless of that, his article gets used by Republican AGs, even if he didn't mean it to sound like that. Both the Republican AGs and, as Matt Lech pointed out, GLAAD looked at his article and they did read it as a as being in support of what the Republican AGs were claiming.
No, you did not use the words brief. You did not use the words brief, Jesse. That's why.
Jesse.
Exactly, Natalie. It's bearing the lead.
You want to get specific. You got specific about the fact that a viewer wrote in and said that you cited one part of this.
So yeah, Emma's got every reason to be mad and to be frustrated and to want to get in this conversation, because she was the one who was on air when the caller called in. She was the one that Jesse attacked, and in fact basically did what he always does, which was call Emma's boss, Sam, like complain about Emma to Sam in a very, Karen way. And this is somebody who's gotten people fired before. This is absolutely in his wheelhouse. When he gets criticized, especially when he gets called right-wing or transphobic or whatever that is off the brand that he's trying to sell, he has been known to harass people in emails and to contact their employers.
This written document by that woman, what was her name, Jamie Reed, that you didn't cite. Yep. And so if we want to be specific, then be specific about what you said to Sam in this email. Okay,
let me read this, because you're now claiming that you said the word brief, or you said the word attorney, because I asked you.
Hey, sorry, we've been talking about the same document the whole time. You can either.
Well, I didn't know this.
Why the
I didn't know this. Jesse, I don't know your stuff from Adam. I don't care. I said I'm unclear. Let me make this clear.
You don't know my stuff.
I'll tell you.
We do.
So if Jesse can, what he'll do is find something that Sam isn't completely aware of, right? Like which article are we talking about, and be like, oh, see, like he's gonna try to pick apart a detail and show that Sam misinterpreted that detail and use that as a way to kind of cast a light that Sam doesn't know what he's talking about, right? That's Jesse's strategy right here.
Up, because we'll put this up.
Oh, you do know my stuff.
No. We will put up our exchange, because you're mischaracterizing our exchange right now, just like you did on Twitter.
I know, but you won't let me. I'm happy to explain it.
No. I get it now, because I've had to go back and try and understand what you were talking about.
Now you get it. Okay.
But you are, even in this call, mischaracterizing our exchange. And this is what you do. This is my experience of you. You keep saying that people misunderstand me, and Sam said he was going to do this and this and that, and you're the one who creates the confusion. I don't know if you do it on purpose.
This is definitely a debate bozo tactic, right? To try to use somebody's unfamiliarity with like every little bit of your work, like a Jordan Peterson thing where, you know, if you criticize Jordan Peterson, you know, his fans will say, well, you that's because you haven't watched 12 hours of his lectures.
Or if you do it because you're trying to obscure.
You haven't read all of his books.
Some agenda. I don't know.
And it's like the point is not whether Sam is familiar with every single bit of writing that Jesse's done on his Substack, right? This is him trying to change the subject and pivot.
I think it's more that I sort of cleared this up 4 years ago, but none of you guys have read that post, and you keep referring to it. And that's
No. So that's the Substack that he's talking about, right? When he got cited by Republican AGs and criticized by GLAAD, he wrote a Substack to try to clarify, this is what I really believe. This is really the point, you know, the thing that the Republican AGs are claiming. I don't actually agree with that. But again, you're talking about a Substack that chances are it's behind a paywall. Like, again, I don't know for sure, right? Because I don't read a Substack, but, you know, it's infinitely less. It's got less reach. It's like if Tim Pool gets something wrong, right? And he does this. Tim Pool will get things wrong when he has to do an apology, when he has to do an errata, when he has to, you know, kind of correct the record. He doesn't do it on his main channel. He does it on his second channel in order to kind of limit the amount of people that are actually going to see it. A whole 4 days later, like, he almost didn't care and felt like he had to, yeah, exactly.
I don't care about that post.
30 seconds. No, I know you don't care about it, but I'm just trying to get 30 seconds to explain what happened, which you can choose not to grant me that 30 seconds, but just.
I'm going to give you 30 seconds.
Okay. They cited my work to say that
we got 30 seconds.
Gender medicine doesn't help trans adults. My work described that gender medicine as life-saving, and it quoted multiple trans adults who found it life-saving. So you can't read my article.
How late in the piece, Jesse? Have you heard of the principle of journalism, where essentially you're supposed to?
Emma.
No. How late into the piece?
Top of the piece.
How late into the piece, Jesse?
Top of the piece.
Jesse, I'm
Top of the piece. What is the top of the piece, Jesse?
looking at this section that you sent me about, like, for sure, trans affirming care. This paragraph. There's 3,500 words in front of it. The section that you clipped for me.
Yeah. So you would think that the more obvious point, just basic rules of journalism.
Wait a second,
I know you're a journalist.
I want to hear
No.
Was it 3,500 words in, or was it at the top of the piece?
Yeah. Which part?
It was 3,500 words into a 12,000 word piece.
3,500 words in.
It was in the top 25% of a 12,000 word piece. Okay.
Right. As opposed to, I mean, Jesse, have you not in your work
Outside of 25%.
emphasize certain specific cases that are outside of the trend of the overwhelming
Yeah, Natalie was right. This is burying the lead at the very least.
data that shows that gender affirming care for youth is effective and helps reduce suicidal ideation and is important, and that the sister myth essentially is a small edge case? Have you not focused on that a disproportionate amount versus the overwhelming other elements of data that I just described?
Now, notice how reticent he's going to be to answer this question.
Oh, but what you just said isn't true. There isn't overwhelming evidence he's true.
There is. I'm looking. Okay, have you read the Journal of Pediatrics and their clear results on this front, where they looked at children,
Yeah, you're
youth,
talking
over
about a
5
Jack Turban
years?
paper. I've written two lot. No, so you're talking about Christina Olson's paper, not Jack Turban's paper. I apologize. Christina Olson's paper took a group of kids who transitioned early, social transition.
Yep.
She found that 93% of them 5 years in were still in that socially transitioned role.
And then that's Emma having to pin him down after a bunch of kind of pivoting and obfuscation that he's done with Sam.
But none of them were diagnosed with gender dysphoria. So you can't compare that to the question I'm interested in, which is whether these treatments help alleviate gender dysphoria, because we don't know if the kids in Olson's sample had gender dysphoria.
You're using outdated terminology to talk about children who are already socially transitioning and showing that that is effective, and they're consistent after that 5-year period in their transition.
This is just an objective matter of fact. What you just said, this is
pedantic. Do you believe that? No, it is. Do you believe that gender affirming care works and is overwhelmingly effective with children? Do you believe it?
I am with the 5 European countries who have looked into this question closely, and all of them are like, we don't know yet. We need more data. So no, it's not established.
So that's an answer, but he took a while getting to it.
Okay.
It is established.
All right. Well, so you don't believe it.
not
But you just changed the question that she asked you.
And he wouldn't even directly answer the question. Like if you want to take him in the best possible faith, then you want to assume that, he's like, he didn't even answer the question for adults, right? And I'm gonna pause it. I'm gonna let them get through with this. But like I said, I've got some words for Jesse, and I want to say them at the end of all this. But I'm gonna posit a reason for why, even if he agrees, right? Even if we take him at the best faith, make the best assumptions about him, and he agrees that gender-affirming care is life-saving medicine for adults, he's reticent to just say that. I think there's a reason. For that.
There's no doubt. Listen.
I have to go.
We are aware. I am aware that the Dutch protocol is no longer being used in these 5 European countries, and that they're looking at more data. I'm also aware of like hundreds of situations where Europeans and Americans have different protocols, and part of that process in which there is some broad agreement is that doctors work this stuff out. You clearly have an agenda, and
So what Sam's talking about there is like standard of care, and where the standard of care needs to come from. It should come from people with both medical knowledge about the subject in question and clinical experience.
recoil at the idea that people...
You see how this is a huge problem. This is a huge problem when something like standard of care, which honestly, that's between a doctor and their patient. And, in the case of minors, like the parents, figure in on the decision too. Taking this into a political sphere is wrong. And in the midst of a moral panic against trans people, it's monstrous.
Yes, that you have
every bit as monstrous as Sam Harris's article on in defense of torture.
An agenda. Now, you think that your agenda is founded in a science that is not available to other people. And I'm suggesting, I have no problem with doctors.
It's totally available to you guys.
No, you're not. It's available to me now.
It is completely obscure to us because, as you've said on your show.
Sorry, you guys are talking can you just talk one at a time? I can't hear
Sure.
city speaker.
Because, as you've said on your show, we're doing this just to A, make cash, and B, seen as more righteous than other people.
Yeah, that was the why I forgot about that. That Jesse did say that stuff. And it's wild that he would say that, considering that, look, and like I said, I don't know what's in his little heart of hearts. I don't know what actually motivates Jesse Singal, what he believes, what he doesn't believe, why he's doing the things that he's doing, why he's made so much of his career about attacking trans people. And I know that if you see this, he's going to rage at me saying that. He's going to be like, I wasn't attacking trans people. I'm trying to help trans people. I'm a trans ally, blah, 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 blah. We don't know, what he really feels about this, but we know the effect that something like this has in the midst of a moral panic, and it's not good.
I've listened to at least part of one of your shows. And so I know that you said...
Assuming that he is who he says he is, ideologically, he is a trans ally like he says he is, he's doing a lot of harm. And he should, think twice about this.
Yes. I know you said this, Jesse. I know that you feel this. Now, I do not attribute to you some type of intent. I don't know that you're making cash off this or what it is. I just see what the impact of what you do is, and I think it's reprehensible.
But he's literally accusing Sam of what everybody assumes that he's doing. And look, I'm not going to say that they're wrong to assume that. Now, me and Sam, we're kind of methodological about this, in that, what matters first and foremost isn't what's in the person's heart of hearts, right? When it comes to a politician, when it comes to a public figure, right? When it comes to a politician, the legislation that they pass, the legislation that they support is what's important. When it comes to a public figure, the words that they say are what's important. The subjects that they choose to spend the most of their time on are what's important. And it really doesn't matter what Jesse Singal's intentions are. That's what he was trying to get across in the beginning of the debate, too.
And that's it.
Well, but I've already explained to you guys.
No, I'm not just talking about limited to.
You raised of that was misinterpreted, and you changed the debate into, okay, you did say that, but it wasn't high enough.
Hey, listen, Jesse, I didn't say anything in the beginning. I wouldn't have known about this, and no one would have known about it except for your insistence that it was straightforwardly defamatory, that you had been cited by Republican AGs.
No, so he's saying that it's defamatory in terms of Matt saying Jesse's lies were cited by Republican AGs, not the Republican AGs were doing the defamation. Matt Lech is the one that Jesse accused of being defamatory.
And what had been cited was lies. And you said to me in an email it was straightforwardly defamatory. I got news for you. You don't know what the word straightforwardly means, and I'm not sure you know what the word defamatory means.
Look, I never claimed to be, it could just be you guys are smarter than me on this stuff, but do you think the sentence in that legal brief accurately describes my work? That's all I'm asking.
What sentence?
I don't know.
The sentence that there's no consensus that transition alleviates gender dysphoria. Do you think that accurately describes my
quote? Was that quote from your?
Hold up, it's right there. We've been.
Well, no, he already questioned that in terms of trans kids, right? But he wants it to be heard that he's not saying that about adults. That's the part of what he said that he wants people to concentrate on, that he wants people to see.
Was that quote,
like Sam and Emma are saying, that's buried in his article, if it's even on there, and it's really easy to read that article just like the Republican AGs did, and just like GLAAD did, and come out of it with a different assessment
from your piece.
Well, Jesse, then let me just ask you directly once again: do you believe that the established standards of care in the United States are effective and should be implemented to help children as they begin to transition in their youth?
The standards of care say that kids should get like 1 to 2 years of therapy before they transition. So that might be too conservative, but it's something like that.
Okay, so what's the issue?
Then what's the problem?
Those are the new standards of care. The question is whether people are following them.
Okay, well, you know what?
I doubt Emma.
But the evidence that you've shown, the Jamie Reed.
Listen, like to accuse doctors of not following the standard of care in this kind of political climate with this kind of panic, like a moral panic going on, it is pretty ridiculous.
Whistleblower, bro, has been discredited over and over again, and you wrote a whole write-up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's called burying the lead.
About that.
She hasn't been discredited?
Has not been discredited?
Hold on, a couple things. Guys, one thing at a time. Emma.
Wait, she hasn't been discredited?
Can we finish?
Well, can I just be clear on what you said?
I'm happy to talk to you.
She has not been discredited.
Let me finish my point.
Okay, wait.
Okay, let me finish.
You just said something. I just want to. I was talking over you. I just want to make sure you said it. Jamie Reed has not been discredited in your mind.
I'm happy to address this. I just want to finish up the thing about the standards of care, because I think that's super important, actually.
Obfuscation.
You didn't say this. I'm just curious about what you said just a couple of seconds ago on this show.
I'd like to finish.
Hey, dude, I got a big guest that's coming up in a minute.
Yeah. Has Jamie Reed been discredited or no?
The guest is actually Sam's son, Saul. He's bringing his kid. He's going to interview his kid after this, right? So that's the big guest.
Emma, it sounds to me that you think kids should get 1 to 2 years of
How has Jamie Reed?
Oh my God, that is so disingenuous. He's trying to hang his hat on the fact that he doesn't think that the 2 years of therapy required are necessary, and that if Emma says standard of care, that she's implying that they are. I mean, obviously
Has Jamie Reed, who was not intimately involved.
She has not been discredited.
Oh, that's interesting to me.
Okay,
that's interesting
so
because we've got to run, but people can look this up. There have been lies over and over proven that she has put out there, which you took at face value.
When you come on the show, can we just get a little bit more specific about the SSD stuff?
Honestly, dude, I mean, look, I want to engage in good faith, and we have now had this conversation, and to be honest with you, like, I don't back down from anybody, but I really think you should just have a trans person on, or an activist or someone of that kind.
And like I said, Jesse, if you've made it this far, if you actually listen to what I said and watch this thing all the way through, I will volunteer to have a conversation, because you're missing a guest, right? You were anticipating, and Emma, expressed interest in coming on Blocked and Redacted this week. Jesse, I'll be your guest. If I don't think you want me, I don't think that you want to. I've got some questions for you that are going to be kind of uncomfortable, and I'm not sure you want to answer those, right? I'm not sure that you are comfortable talking about this stuff in the room with somebody who's actually affected by it. I feel like a lot of what you do is nuance mongering and abstraction that takes you away from the effects of your actual rhetoric, right? And if you really want to look at what you're doing, take a look at your audience, bro. Take a look at what gets said about any trans person that comes into conflict with you. If you're the trans ally that you claim to be, how come your following isn't like that? How come you're appealing to, if you don't hate trans people, if you're not against trans people, right? If you want to support us in the midst of this moral panic, how come your audience doesn't feel the same way? I'll take you at your word. All right. Like I said, I don't know what's in your heart of hearts, right? A lot of people say you're a grifter. I completely understand why they say that. But, if I want to be skeptical, then maybe I shouldn't assume that. I should, take you at your word. But if you're really an ally, if you really care about people like me, Jesse, you got some things to consider, okay? You're not doing anything helpful for us. You're putting us at danger.
Because I cover a bunch of issues on this program. We cover politics on a daily basis from different perspectives. And
okay, so you're backing out, though, is what you're saying.
Sure. I to be honest with you,
based upon your original complaint to me, I will, as a boss, I will suspend her if she goes on your show.
We had a back and forth over email. We couldn't.
You called the manager.
And
you didn't get the response.
I don't want to give this more life.
You're backing out. It's unfortunate.
Well, Natalie, I'm gonna have to disagree with Polly on this one. I support the limited engagement that they're doing here. I get what she's saying, and I get the optics of agreeing to something like appearing on Blocked and Redacted, and then not actually going through with it. But I kind of like where Emma's left it, right? She said, "You want to have somebody on? You want to talk about this? Talk to a trans person." That's the one. That's going to be an entirely different conversation, right? If Jesse Singal talked to poly people or talked to me, I think it would be an entirely different dynamic than if he's allowed to talk in the abstract about trans people to somebody like Emma. So yeah, I kind of support what they're doing here. They had him on, they had the discussion. I don't know if there's that much that Emma would even have to say to him. But I mean, yeah, these things are complicated. So, and I totally get what Polly and you're saying about optics in terms of agreeing to something and then not going through with it.
Hey, Jesse, if that's what you want to hang your hat on, have a good rest of the week, buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yo.
Actually, I appreciate
I love that. That's a
call,
perfect
Jesse.
ending.
Yeah, couldn't care less. Thank you. Bye.
That is a perfect ending. No, I'm super satisfied with that. I feel like a lot of times people get a clear W, which, that was in a debate, and then they feel obliged to continue the engagement. And like look at Destiny Demon Mama, right? How different would that have? I don't know if anybody remembers that debate, right? But how different would that debate have been if Demon Mama had cut him off halfway through and said, "Well, I feel like I've said everything that I need to say, and thank you for coming by, Destiny. It's right? That would have been so sick if she had just cut him off right there. But instead she continued, and it ended up being, I mean, like I would say kind of a tie. Other than the fact that, Destiny's got this fabulous reputation. He's super well known. He's supposed to be this master debater, and Demon Mama showed him up in the first half of that debate. I feel like, he was able to make up the ground that he lost in the second half of the debate, and there was no reason for Demon Mama to continue the conversation at that point. she seems to have gotten better in terms of that, since then, like that she pretended to bring Riley on and then didn't end up letting Riley talk at all. Like, I think that was brilliant. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
It's right at the top of the piece. 35 words.
Let's get into a serious debate.
Yes, here we go.
What's that?
The serious debate with Saul. Okay, that's Sam's kid, and it's really cute. I would, if you haven't seen it, make sure to check it out. Sam's. I think he did this with Mila too. He used to bring Mila on, and Mila's gone to college now, so Sam is like a parent of one at the moment in terms of who's in his house, and that's Saul. So he you get an interview with Sam's kid. Emma's not wrong with her assessment, but finishing with that is not great when she could have wrecked him about relying on discredited stuff and refusing to retract or update things.
No, you're going to come around
We're
here.
going to take a break and then we'll put you on.
Well, wait.
Right?
I think that would be a lot more effective, Sarah, coming from a trans person, right?
Comes around this side.
And look, like when I see like somebody that's an ally uplifting our voices that normally don't get listened to in a discourse like this, like I'll take it. You know what I'm saying? I will 100% say that, because you never get that. There's like a tendency among cis people to
like and subscribe,
to not really think about including us in our own discourse, in our own struggle. And the fact that Emma went there, it actually means a lot to me. I don't know. Like, obviously, if I talk to and that's probably not going to happen. Like, right? Like he is very sensitive. He does, read everything he can about himself. And but yeah, I mean, he's also known to harass trans people. But yeah, I'm willing to look. I've put myself in the line of fire before. I don't feel like I've got that much to lose by doing it again. Emma was right. It felt like an afterthought. Well, I don't know. It's more than I get from most cis people. I'll say that much, right? Yeah, I was impressed too. This I feel I really like how this debate went. I totally understand where Polly's coming from though, and with a guy like Jesse Singal, he's done so much harm to trans people, and the worst part about it is that he's able to present this veneer that he doesn't hate us. That's his whole thing. The article that we read about him, protonmag.com, Proton magazine from 2022, MK Anderson. The point of this article is that Jesse does more harm to trans people with the veneer of civility, with the veneer of respect, with the veneer of not having an emotional dog in the fight, of not having like any real, hate against trans people. He does more harm than most, mask off transphobes. And I mean, that's the key. And that's what's so frustrating about him, right? And that's what makes him a pretty effective interlocutor for the right, is if they can point to Jesse Singal and be like, look, even this liberal gets it. Even this former writer for The Stranger, former writer for a leftist alternative weekly, right? If even he, thinks you're wrong about puberty blockers, then we got a problem, right? That's his utility. And like I said, this is the basic IDW game that he plays.